Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our final segment of Day 2 coverage from MUFON Symposium 2023 here in Covington, Kentucky. Our guest is Jeff Craig. He is from Map in Black, and he's a cartographer. Number one, cartography is epic. The fact that there are still people out there practicing cartography is awesome. But your cartography work is absolutely amazing. Here is a map of the state of Kentucky, folks, and you can see there are numerous cryptids, all kinds of haunted locations, various enigma spots, things like that. And that is what this entire map of the whole United States is. I actively just took a picture of this map to send to David Paulides, because I don't know if you caught his presentation last night.
I did not, but I saw him earlier today, and I had to gift him a map.
Epic. That's awesome.
He is so awesome.
Well, and hopefully the one thing he notices is that right here in the United States, as you go down, like he showed last night, his stuff, maps. But this has the exact same lack that his map had.
Mm-hmm.
Where in this exact trough, he was like, there's nothing going on there, no anomalies, nothing like that. And you have almost the exact same data showing all kinds of sightings, haunted places, other mysterious locations, earthen mounds, everything. Like if you are into the paranormal, folks, I'm here to tell you, if you're a cryptid hunter or anything like that, you need one of these maps. It is absolutely awesome. How did you get into cartography to begin with?
In general, I got into cartography because I've always loved maps. And in college, I was an education major, and my roommate even called me Mr. Maps because I just put maps on the wall. There was something about the visual aspect of a map. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, we were on road trips with the family, and I had the Rand McNally Road Atlas. Yeah. Following along. So paper maps always just maybe the physical touch of the map and following along and looking at the maps and wondering what else is out there. I think that really just piqued my imagination. Yeah. Looking at maps of the Arctic when I was a kid fascinated me. Uncharted territory. What was there? Why don't we have more on the map in those areas? Well, there's not much there, but I wondered what was there, and I wanted to go, and I wanted to see that for myself. So in college, I took some geography courses as an education major, and then my senior year, I realized you could actually major in geography. I thought geography was just memorizing state capitals or flags. Geography is a social science. It can be a physical science depending on what you're doing with it, what you're mapping, what you're studying. Geography is the study of spatial data, spatial analysis. Geography looks for patterns, and they use maps, they use data, they use statistics. Maps are just a tool. So I realized senior year I could really study this more, so I went straight into grad school in geography, master's in geography at the University of Cincinnati, my undergrad from Miami of Ohio, and did a 2-year geography master's. And you take a little bit of cartography, map making. They were in quarters at the time. They've now switched to semesters, but my first quarter I took a manual cartography class, how to make a map with the old-fashioned tools that they used. Wow. Black ink pens, Koh-i-Noor was the name of the company. The tools that you would use to write letters. And I don't really remember it all because it was 1 quarter. It was 10 weeks. But they wanted you to have an appreciation of that, of how it used to be done. Because a lot of the terminology in cartography goes back to having to use ink and paper. So then I went on to the computer cartography stuff that we're all doing today. And I was lucky enough to get a job out of grad school working for a local company that made street maps. So I would go around the country field checking maps and then coming back home and drawing them up on the computer, maps for cities, for chambers of commerce, everywhere from Des Moines, Iowa to Sarasota, Florida to cities in Virginia and all across mostly the eastern U.S.
Yeah, travel maps, things like that.
Yeah,
to do locally.
It was a
like that.
very detailed street map, but it was the map that the chamber gave out for free. It was the number one requested item at the time when paper maps were still a thing. Mid-2000s come along, paper maps tank as Garmin's and GPS comes along. And then in another 5 years after that, cell phones.
You're all replaced by automated vehicles now.
We were replaced. My paper maps were replaced. The company tanked, and I was able to transition to the local energy company who have maps that they need of all their utilities.
Wow.
Gas and electric. And those are all done online. So I was able to transition to that. But I still love the paper maps. And when I got into wanting to map the paranormal, I thought about, do I do a paper map or do I make it available digitally?
Virtually, yeah.
Yep, virtually, digitally. The digital map would be great. This was still early on, 2005, 6, 7, when I was doing the first map of Ohio with my haunted spots, my cryptid sightings, my UFOs. And I really wanted a paper map, one, so you could just spread it out and see it. And I did want to see if there were patterns. Are there patterns to where the haunted spots are versus the UFO sightings versus cryptids and Bigfoot sightings and other anomalies, ancient American earthworks that Ohio has a lot of, Serpent Mound and Miamisburg Mound, which is an 80-foot tall mound. Is there a pattern? Perhaps. I could not map everything that I think I needed to on the map. I didn't put every haunted spot. I didn't put every Bigfoot sighting because the map would just be illegible.
It would be huge.
It would be huge.
We show the map from the Bigfoot Research Organization regularly on the show, and and typically in the aspect of, so you think that we've discovered all of America and that we've settled it. Well, here's a map of the United States at night. Like, here's a shot of the U.S. at night from the ISS. There's a lot of black there.
The black.
There's a lot of non-light.
Yes.
And it's funny how when you overlay the BFRO map on top of that, it's almost identical where the sightings are and where there's no light.
Right.
It's pretty remarkable.
When I was doing Map in Black too, so I did the Ohio map first with the paranormal activity. People wanted other states, so I decided to map the whole country. Took 10 years of research to map this Map in Black for the whole country and parts of Canada, and exhaustive amount of time to do that. I didn't think I'd get done. I would stop and go so many times over the years, and raising kids and getting them off to college, which happened in the late 2010s, 2019, and then the pandemic hit. I was almost done with the map. My job went remote, no extra social activities because of the pandemic. I was able to concentrate and finish the Map in Black. So a lot of people are like, well, the pandemic was awful. I agree, but it got me to finish the map. So
I had quite a few projects that I X'd off my list, and it was really nice because they were things that like this had been haunting me for years, where it was like, man, when I get the bandwidth and I get the time to sit down and do it, it's gonna be awesome. And I treasure
that time I had because now we're all back to our busy lives.
The madness of the world. And how have you seen the world of, aside from technology, things like that, have you seen a rebirth in paper map loving?
I have, for these maps specifically. I don't know in general if I've seen a rebirth of the love of paper maps, but when people see my maps, they're like, oh, I love maps, and this is great. And I just think if you're trying to look at a phone and find out where these things are, it just doesn't display the same way.
Yeah.
So you unfold the map, and you can get a idea of the surroundings, and you see other places nearby, and I think that's important to have that connection.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Not so hyper-focused on that one spot.
Well, and especially whenever you're doing online research. I have recently, in the last year or so, moved to a digital tablet.
Nice.
I no longer carry a tablet with me. That is for entertainment. Everything else, work, all that, it's done on this. It is distraction-free. I don't get distracted by social media randomly. I don't like, oh, look, this thing popped up. Let me rabbit hole on it.
Exactly.
You know, so the idea of, hey, if you were trying to do some in-depth local research, trying to see even directionally where things line up, does something follow a certain ley line across the United States? Yep. This is an easy way to be able to do it, A, distraction-free, and B, where it's compiled.
Yep.
I mean, you have everything from the U.S. Air Force bases on there.
I do.
To once again, Native American sites, Bigfoot sighting sites, everything.
Petroglyphs. I have telescopes, just because where are we putting our telescopes to look out into the universe?
Yeah, and where can you go find a publicly accessible telescope?
Yeah.
You know, because believe it or not, you can... Hey, if you get a hold of the right people, you can rent time on a telescope and go like hang out and see stuff that's absolutely amazing. So.
I highly recommend it. Cincinnati, where I am, has one. It's one of the older ones. You'd think, why does Cincinnati have one? It's in the middle of an area with light pollution. It's still cool to see stuff.
You would be surprised what you can get. I'm a backyard astronomer and take a lot of backyard astronomy photography.
Nice.
The pictures that I have of the Orion Nebula, people are like, where did you get that? And I'm like, from my backyard in Cedar Park, Texas. They're like, isn't that light polluted? And I've got a neighbor's garage light about 15 feet away. But you'd be surprised what you can catch. You'd be surprised what you can see. And that was all from a friend of mine who saw some of my moon shots. It was like, dude, you got a group of lenses and a camera. Like, if you just go and point it at Orion's belt, you'd be surprised what you get on a long exposure. Yeah. And I did that. Yep. And my mind was blown. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it's telescope time, Jack. Yeah. I have been rabbit holing on that and having so much fun, and actively just recently got a fold-out map of the galaxy, like all of the constellations, things like that, to show my son, because I'm busy teaching him that, and it is such a useful tool for teaching kids, for carrying on that kind of stuff. He loves maps. He loves them.
Excellent.
So
glad to hear.
It's interesting to pass that along and to see how that can be passed along. How have you used this to, I mean, obviously you have a love of the paranormal. Sure. Otherwise, what brought you to want to gather all of that together to begin with? Because that is, once again, a decade-long daunting task, Jeff.
I watched a movie I'm sure all of your viewers have probably heard of, called The Mothman Prophecies. And I watched that in about 2004. A friend suggested we rent it on DVD. We may have even gone to Blockbuster Video to pick it up. Right. I don't remember, but I'd seen the movie in the video store. I saw that it starred Richard Gere, and so I was not really that interested. I had no idea it was a movie about a cryptid, a strange creature. I thought it was an interesting name, but I never really gave it a second look until my buddy said we should watch this. So kudos, Brian Davenport, if you're out there listening. He helped get me on this path. So we watched the movie. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check it out. It's also a book. It was a book first by lygne-kehl. And it talks about a strange creature that was seen in and around Point Pleasant, West Virginia in the late 60s. Obviously a long time ago, but it was a very big story at the time, and it had some big ramifications, and it just really spiked my interest. So here I am in Cincinnati, just a couple hours downriver from where this happened, down the Ohio River. I'm like, why hadn't I ever heard of this before? Well, one, I grew up in Chicago, and two, it happened 50 years ago, so that's why I hadn't heard of it. It opened my eyes. I'm like, what else am I not knowing about? Yeah. Why didn't I know about this? This is crazy. This strange creature was seen all over the region by hundreds and hundreds of people. Law enforcement gave alibis, sworn affidavits that they saw this creature. Yeah. You know, they're putting their job on the line. This isn't just some off sighting by one person. This was a pattern over a period of time. other weird things going on, UFOs, Men in Black, lots of strange happenings at the time that I learned about later that really isn't covered in the movie too much. It is a little bit, but so the movie's Hollywoodized, of course, but still a good introduction for me and got me on this path where I'm like wanting to discover what else is out there and being a map guy anyways. I'm like, I got to put this on a map. I got to see if, what's going on. Is there a pattern? So that's what got me on that whole journey. Granted, it happened in West Virginia. It was right on the border of Ohio. Being in Ohio, I focused on Ohio, mapped Ohio first with a little bit of West Virginia in there. The way you do a border around Ohio, you're going to get a good portion of West Virginia in there with the Mothman sightings. So that was what started me on this whole journey. And I'm like, well, if I like this, maybe other people do too. So let me get the map looking good, and I'll put it out there. I reached out to some people. Like, hey, do you want to help sponsor this? I'll give you a free little blip on the map, a little ad, so to speak. And then started trying to sell it. And then I found a local bookstore called Half Price Books, which I know you have in Texas.
Love Half Price Books.
And they got on the bandwagon about a year later, and they started selling it just in Ohio, because it was just an Ohio map at the time. And that, I mean, there's like 15 stores all across Ohio in our big cities.
Awesome.
Ohio has Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, and all those big cities have like 4 stores in each spot. So it really helped distribute the map.
That is awesome.
Then I kept looking for other places. The Serpent Mound gift shop sells it, and other places. So people really helped get the word out by offering it at their store. And I love the independent bookstores. I love getting it into those places.
Yep.
When I did Map in Black in 2020, I had really gotten to know how to kind of get the maps out to places. And, of course, Half Price Books, being nationwide, was on with getting it into their stores across the country. 122 stores. I think half of them are in Texas.
Yeah, there's a good 40 in Texas.
So that's well covered. And then I just, the Mothman Museum carries it now with the national version, Map in Black. And apparently people love paper maps because it's selling great. I've sold 50,000 maps, mostly of the Hidden Ohio, because that's what's been out longest. But going on 10,000 map in Black for the whole country here.
That is incredible, man.
Years. Yeah.
Congratulations. That is a huge individual accomplishment.
Well, thank you. I love that people embrace it. I'm so tickled. To this day, every individual map I mail out, if someone orders it from me, I look at their name, I look at their city. I'm like, I am so happy that this person found me, and they want the map, and I'm honored and humbled, to be honest.
That is really cool. One question I would have is updates?
I've already updated Map in Black once. It came out in 2020. I sold 5,000 copies, which was my print run. Yeah. I made a few minor tweaks because I didn't like the way a few things looked. Like my symbol for Ancient American Earthworks was a big orange circle with kind of like your ring, actually. It almost looked like the sun. To me, it made it look like the map had measles.
Okay.
So the second edition now that's out, that says 2022 at the top, has a new logo, a new symbol for the earthworks that I think fits better. So you're always tweaking it.
Sure.
There was a typo or two on the first map that got through that I had fixed on the second edition. The Ohio map is in the 4th edition. Okay. I've updated that 4 times over the years in the 15 years it's been out.
And have you reached out to any researchers of note to get their feedback on it? Maybe get some additional spots, things like that.
I do reach out. Ohio has some people that are Bigfoot researchers. Don Keating was actually a guy I reached out to at the very beginning. And he was helpful way back in 2005 and 6 when I was doing the research. There's a UFO group in Ohio called the Round Town UFO Society.
Okay.
And we found each other in doing the research on the map. They found me, actually. I'm not really sure how, but perhaps that's a story for another time.
Resourceful people, my friend.
Yes, they knew I was doing the map somehow. And they're like, you have to have this UFO sighting. That's one of the first classic UFO encounters that they said happened in outside of Circleville, Ohio. which has the nickname of Round Town. So that's why the UFO Society is called the Round Town UFO Society.
Okay.
It was a classic encounter, that classic kind of UFO disc shape object. A farmer saw one night at 2 a.m. He didn't tell people for like 10 years because he didn't want people to think like he was crazy, which is unfortunately something I think that happens a lot.
All too frequent.
Yeah. So, but later on he shared it, and so that's how I find some of these things on the map.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you ever had an experience yourself, Jeff?
I have not had a real concrete experience. When I was at Moonville Tunnel, which is one of my favorite haunted spots in Ohio, I was taking some friends there actually on our way to the Mothman Festival.
Okay.
And we stopped at Moonville, which is this abandoned railroad tunnel, a brick tunnel, very beautiful, in the middle of what is now Zaleski State Forest in southeastern Ohio. People who don't know Ohio real well might think of it as a big urban, suburban kind of state. A good deal of the country is very rural, and southeastern Ohio is the foothills of Appalachia.
Yeah.
So here we are in the foothills of Appalachia, and there's this old railroad tunnel, brick tunnel. It says Moonville on it. It's such a cool name to begin with. Like, how can it not be haunted with the name Moonville? That was the name of the settlement. It's on the old USGS topo maps. They put a tunnel through the hills of the Appalachian foothills here for the railroad to take the iron and coal out of the hills, and it then became abandoned when more inexpensive resources were found elsewhere. So the tunnel remains, and ghost story goes that the Lantern Man fell off the train and was decapitated. The Lantern Man held the lantern on the train back when they needed
signaling additional cars, things like that.
Yep, exactly. So he fell off, was decapitated. So the story goes that he's still out there looking for his head, carrying his lantern. So we're there. Nothing happens that night, but my friend Janet was taking photos with a camera with film in it.
Okay.
So weeks later, she messages me and says, "Did you have a flashlight?" And I said, "No." So next time I saw her, she had the film developed, and there was a light in the background behind me, and it was getting dark. It was not dark yet, but it was getting dark, and here's this light behind me.
Interesting.
No explanation. Is it the Lantern Man? Who knows?
Could be.
You don't see a figure, you don't see a person, you don't see a lantern, but you just see this bright white light. Is it a blip in the film?
Yeah.
That's what the logical mind wants to say.
Sure.
But
yeah.
It doesn't look like a blip. It looks like a light.
Wow.
So that's the closest I've been to anything.
Yeah.
And, there's been other weird things that have gone in my life that aren't ghost related, but just weird synchronicities that pop up. I'm sure we all have them if we look for them.
Yeah.
And there's ones there that kind of blow my mind, like the odds of certain things happening just don't seem right. And that's really what a coincidence is just the odds are not in favor of that thing. That thing should not happen.
Yeah.
Could it happen? Yes. Are the odds
good for it? No.
So low with some of the things that have gone on that make me wonder about some things out there that just aren't logical. And do I have the answers? No. Will I ever have the answers? Probably not, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the concepts we talk about regularly on the show is the idea of even you going to the spot that is your favorite haunted spot. Like, are you possibly charging that location before you get there? Are you actively putting yourself in a mindset to be more receptive to an experience?
I've been there many times to Moonville, and I wanted to show these friends the spot on our way to the Mothman Fest, so I like that idea.
Yeah, the idea that, we regularly have conversations on the way to the table in the world, and that utterly affects the way we have that conversation, because, when you ask the questions, you typically hear the answer in your head, too. So, we have to be careful, preconceived notions going into places.
For sure.
And, what we put out there. But you have put out some amazing work, dude. I cannot wait to see what you keep releasing.
Oh, appreciate it.
Because this is incredible. The fact that you went through the effort to compile this massive amount of data is incredible. I don't know a cryptid researcher or paranormal researcher out there that should be without this. Let everybody know where they can go to get their copy of Map in Black, where they can go to follow you, where they can go to get everything from Map in Black and Jeff Craig.
Yeah, go to mapinblack.com to order the national version, this Map in Black here. You can follow Map in Black on Instagram or Facebook. And if you are in Ohio and just want the Ohio map, I do have a different website for that, and that's celticmaps.com.
Awesome.
And, of course, if it's at a store, I'd love that you would support the store and just get it there, whether it's half-price books, or if you don't have it at your favorite bookseller or gift shop, you can certainly ask them to carry it, and I would love to have them have it there. It helps them, it helps me, and it helps you.
Absolutely.
And I love the small independent businesses especially. So find your local little family-owned bookstore and see if they want to carry it.
And this is a great way, folks. Like if your kids are into cryptid stuff like that, but do not groove on geography, this right here, dude, this could not be a better teaching tool for kids that, like, geography just ain't their jam.
Learn your states.
You can teach them right here.
Very detailed base map.
It's
every
awesome.
national park, every state, every national forest. The Ohio map has very detailed base maps, more detailed than the Ohio road map, the highway map you get for free there at the rest stops and stuff. Yeah.
Well,
so
Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time, coming on.
You're
I
welcome.
greatly appreciate it. While you were online checking out all of the amazing work from Jeff Craig and mapinblack.com, make sure to stop on by curiousrealm.com. That's where you can find all of our coverage from live events such as MUFON Symposium, other events like Texas UFO Con, International Remote Viewing Association, etc. That is also where you can follow, like, subscribe to the show, and where you can find our curiousrealm.com/story page, where you can share your experience of the paranormal or extraterrestrial, and we will share your story and evidence with our researchers to try to get you some answers. That ends our coverage for day 2 of MUFON Symposium 2023 here in Covington, Kentucky. Stay tuned, everybody. After this commercial break, we'll be upcoming with our day 3 coverage and our final coverage of MUFON Symposium 2023 right after this.